All right. Welcome to Synergy Sminergies, the business podcast for people who hate business podcasts. I'm your co-host, Jeremy Schiefling.
And I'm your co-host, Rose.
And we're thrilled to be coming to you today, not with a guest, but with a deep dive into all the hottest stories that have come out in the past month. So without further ado, Rose, this is the episode I've been waiting for. We're going to be getting into AI as it pertains to college and work, all these tech layoffs that never seem to end, Zuckerberg and the list. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts there. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, Jeff Bezos' celebrity-studded wedding in Venice to cap it all off. Are you ready, Rose?
Love it. I love this month. This month was so exciting.
Absolutely. Just not a boring day in the month. So with that said, let's start with our first topic, which is how AI is starting to shape both college and work. And I know you've been reading a lot here in terms of how it's affecting both ends of the collegiate and career spectrum. What are some of your big takeaways, Rose, from what you're seeing out there?
So in terms of education, there was a New York Times article that basically was like, welcome to campus. Here's your ChatGPT. And basically OpenAI is trying to embed ChatGPT into every part of college life. So they're pitching this idea of AI native universities, and some schools, like basically the entire Cal State system, are buying in. So Cal State University announced this year that it was making ChatGPT available to more than like 460,000 students.
Whoa,
across
that's huge.
across 23 campuses to help them prepare for like the AI driven economy, which makes sense. So their goal is wanting to prep students for an AI driven job market. Obviously, on the other side of the spectrum, you'll see teachers and administrators being kind of weary about this, not only from a job, like losing job perspective, but also like, are we setting up students for success in the future? Like, are we teaching critical thinking skills? Like, is this even healthy? And then in terms of the jobs, we're getting a lot of news about how entry-level job positions, so the ones that college grads would normally get, right, to gain experience, are pretty much quickly vanishing and being replaced by AI. So we're seeing higher levels of unemployment for Gen Z. Those are the two big main trends that we're seeing this month.
Yeah, so let's take the college piece first.
Yep.
So, I mean, it does seem like kind of marketing 101, which is you're always trying to build out your next customer. So just like Apple back in the day would try to sell, MacBooks into college or K through 12, and then there were Chromebooks, and now there's AI. It kind of makes sense that they're going after their next generation customers. Is there anything that we should be wary of here, Rose, based on the way you're looking at this?
I will say I get the both sides, right? The pro side, the argument side is like, we have to teach students AI because AI is going to be everywhere. So college should teach students how to use it. I can see the argument for accessibility, right? Because ChatGPT can help students with language barriers, learning differences, lack of academic support. I've heard arguments for leveling the playing field and how it's, obviously efficient and, make people more productive. But also there's a lot of studies that show that students are relying on AI way too much, right? And that prevents them from critical thinking and like building those skills up. And AI isn't always accurate, as we know, like sometimes it hallucinates. I do think critical thinking is at major risk right now. When I was younger, I think about how most of the things I've learned was just solving problems. That doesn't mean I got things right all the time or I got the grades perfect all the time, but it also meant that like I had to go through the research, find the problems, all of that. And that's quickly kind of going away, right? And then I think it does erode skill building for a lot. I think I told you this, Jeremy, but I go to business school. And one of the things that I've noticed in business school, which is kind of fascinating, is ChatGPT is always on in the classroom. So like we're having class discussions, right? And this is Booth. Okay. It's $160,000 for the entire education. Right. And so that's like, it's $8,000 a term for, at least for me. So that's $1,000 per class basically.
Yeah.
And I'm watching people in classes having discussions, asking ChatGPT questions that teachers are asking us and them just spitting out the answers.
Oh, wow.
And I've been in group projects where we're doing like entrepreneurial stuff, we're brainstorming, we're trying to be creative. And because we're on Google Docs, you can see what people are writing, right? You can see if someone copies and pastes a giant paragraph of AI generated stuff. And I'm seeing this and I will like go through it and someone's like, okay, good, I'm done with my section. And I'm sitting there thinking, not only did I know that you copied and pasted it from ChatGPT, but none of it is accurate and you clearly didn't read the case study. So the question is like, what is the point of college at this point if we're just going to give people answers? Like, is it even worth is it even worth the money?
Yeah, well, let me draw an interesting distinction here. So it seems like there are both good and poor use cases for AI,
Yeah.
as there are for any tool, right? You can use a chainsaw to cut down a tree. That would be
Mhm.
totally great. But using it to slice a stick of butter, totally inappropriate. And it does feel like, you could actually use AI in a very critical thinking focused way.
Mhm.
Play devil's advocate, challenge my ideas, force me to think about things in a new perspective. But it feels like most people are defaulting to sort of the basic of just do my work for me, write my resume for me, write my essay for me. So here's the question. Do you think, Rose, that when these schools are partnering with OpenAI and they're paying all this money to, bring ChatGPT in or bring it to their students, are they actually training students on how to use it? Or are they just like throwing that chainsaw into the student body and hoping for the best?
Okay, so I have talked to a lot of professors about this. Especially, I have a friend that is about to start his year after getting his PhD in computer science, and I know that professors are really upset about it. So they are trying to find ways to incorporate AI because the thing is you can't not use it, right? I think a lot of schools right now are really scared of falling behind. Like if you don't use AI, you are going to be behind. So I do know that professors are trying to find ways to help people think critically and creatively, but I think it's almost a little too early to tell whether or not it'll work, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think someone we talked to said this, but like humans are kind of wired to want the shortcut. And it makes sense. Like I'm trying to think like if you and I were in school, if we had these tools, whether or not we would use it, right? Whether or not we would be like, this is the night before the essay's due, and I'm just going to put this question into ChatGPT, and it's so easy. And students are also I think that education in general, we've always been emphasizing a lot on like grades and like, there are a lot of recruiters who will judge students based on grades. So I think that plays a huge component in people, taking the shortcut.
Yeah. Well, it's also a slippery slope, right? Like, let's say you go to ChatGPT to do a literature review before you start writing an essay. That might be a totally appropriate use case because you're getting a sense of the context and bringing in all that existing research. But then if you say, okay, take that literature review and apply it to my thesis or my idea, now is it starting to do some of that critical thinking? And before you know it, you're writing the whole essay with AI. So it does feel like you can easily go down that path.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question on the collegiate side, Rose, then we'll move to the work side.
Yeah.
Here's the big sort of rub of all these studies that have been coming out. Is AI making us dumb?
It is making us dumber. I talk about this all the time at parties. And and the thing is, it's not just me that's saying this. It's people in computer science studying AI. It does make us dumber. Sometimes I feel dumber. And I mean, I've tried to be really, once that article in the Wall Street Journal came out being like, AI is making you dumber, I was like, you know what it is? Because these are skills. It's like exercising, right? If you're not exercising the same skills, like you are not going to be able to continue thinking the way you do. And I have a great example of this, and I always talk about it at parties, but the way in which we interact with people has changed. So like, thank God I'm not in the dating world right now, but people are using AI for pickup lines and to respond to people and to interpret text messages. So I have a coworker who, because she lives in a different culture, she definitely has a hard time, I guess, interpreting all the nuances of certain text messages, right? I'm a very direct person, as you know, Jeremy. So everything I say is exactly what I mean. So sometimes it can kind of sound blunt or direct, like whatever you want to say. And there have been a couple of times where I'll send a message to, this person, and it'll just be really direct, like as literal as you could take it. And she would ask ChatGPT, like, is this person being passive aggressive? Like, what is the tone of this message? And several times ChatGPT has told her this person, depending on the context, this person can be passive aggressive. And then I will get like a long message that is like aggressive back to me. And then I would have to talk to the person and say, what is going on? And then they'll tell me, I thought you were being passive aggressive. And I was like, I was not being passive aggressive. And you should not be asking ChatGPT how to interpret these emails and text messages. But people are doing this. And so the way that they are interacting with each other has changed too, which I find very concerning. And
wait, hold on a second though, Rose. Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah.
If you had told me like, hey, there are all these booth MBAs who are just cheating their way through business school, I'd be like, yeah, that's totally going to make them dumber. They're going to be less effective as professionals someday. But in this case, I actually love the intent. She really wants to understand you. And she's using this as kind of this interpreter, almost like Star Trek style, to get to know you.
Yes.
And it sounds like maybe just the model is not sophisticated enough to understand the Rose experience.
I think I would only agree with that, except I was the one to go to her and say, what happened here? Like, I want to understand what happened here. And then she gave me another use case in which she misinterpreted an email from a client. And in my mind, I was like, unless that person goes to you, that there's a lot of confusion there. Because not everyone is as confrontational as I am, right? And so, yeah, so there's that, like, the way we interact with each other that's making us, like, emotionally dumber, which sounds really terrible, but I think there is a risk of that. But whenever ChatGPT is down for an hour, people are freaking out because they can't write emails. I think that's a problem. Or, like, I've read articles about students asking professors for deadlines because ChatGPT was down. But you're basically saying, I don't know how to complete my assignment. And that's kind of embarrassing. And, like, I've seen plenty of articles that show, and, like, use cases and, like, real life, like, situations where it's like a student is saying, I cannot complete this homework assignment because ChatGPT has been down for the day. And that is a problem. Like, that shows you how much we're reliant on.
It really is a
Gen
crutch.
AI.
It's become this thing that we need just to get through our own mental processes. So obviously that's concerning. Now let's play it out into the workforce.
Yeah.
So I'll start with some of the stats, and I want to get your take on it, Rose. One of the most amazing stats came out in the Atlantic last month, which is that for the first time in basically recorded history, new college grads have a higher unemployment rate than the average American worker. For the longest time, you actually had an advantage as a new grad because you were cheap, you were easy to hire, you were more likely to get a job. That advantage is not only gone, now you're disadvantaged. And so the question has become, what's behind this? Was it COVID? Was it interest rates? Was it AI? What's your take, Rose? What's driving this huge downturn in the fortunes of Gen Z?
I think there's going to be a lot of I'm sure inflation has something to do with it, but a lot of it is that entry-level positions are definitely getting replaced with automation. And, like, CEOs from big companies are being very upfront about this. They're basically saying, here are these entry-level positions, here are these lower, these tasks that we're replacing with AI. So it's not a secret that they're doing this. And then on top of that, we have these tech layoffs, right? So a lot of people who are really, really experienced are, in their 30s, 40s, 50s with decades of experience are in the market right now looking for jobs, right? So if you are a hiring manager and you have, older candidates and younger candidates, you're most likely going to choose the most experienced candidates. So I think, like, that combination is tough. I also think, like, I read an article the other day, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, about, like, AI sludge, right? Right now, like, employers are buried in just AI generated resumes, which makes sense. And I was going through the comments, because I always go through the comments of, like, this. And there are people who are like, I've been laid off for, like, several years now. And I have 20 years of experience as a software engineer, and I'm applying for these positions, but there are thousands of applicants per position, right?
Wow.
And recruiters are now turning it to AI to filter through all of this. So you're getting AI generated resumes. Employers don't know how to filter through it, so they're using AI to filter through it, and that makes it tough because a lot of these new grads don't have that experience. So all of that.
Classic AI arms race, right? Each side trying to outdo each other. So now, if you were Gen Z and you're listening to this podcast, what would you recommend, Rose? What advice would you have for someone who just graduated from college last month? They're facing all these headwinds. How do they make sense of this crazy world?
First of all, I'm so sorry if you are, because I feel terrible. And I have a lot of friends who are in Gen Z and they're in this exact same position. And people always ask me, like, what advice do you give them? And I think, oh my goodness, I don't even know, because, like, the reason why I don't know, and I don't want it to make it sound like there's no hope for you, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But it's like, it's tough for everyone out there, because you're also getting people, who are later in their life, who are also struggling to get jobs now that they're also older, right? And you're getting people in their 30s who are struggling. So everyone is struggling. They're all in the same struggle bus. I would say, unfortunately, you have to network more. I think when I was coming out of college, everyone's like, you should network. Never had a job through networking. Not going to lie to you. Never have. But now I'm definitely seeing the value of it, because if employers are just piled with, have piles of resumes, they need that, like, interpersonal touch. And so I would say network a lot more. I would say, like, spend 80% of your time networking and, like, 20% of your time applying for jobs. I would say I've been seeing this thing on Gen Z, like on Instagram, where people are like, oh, I download this app and now I can send like 100 resumes a day without even trying. Don't do that. Like, it's such a waste of time. You're going to get rejected. You're going to feel demoralized. You're going to feel unhappy. So I would say, like, obviously, I will say quality over quantity. Obviously, there's a balance, but people are saying like, oh, you can just apply with the same resume to like 20,000 positions. You're not gonna get any results, and you're gonna feel really shitty about yourself. So I don't see the point of doing that. And then there was an article that you shared about how there are new jobs coming out with AI, right? Like AI auditors, AI translators, AI trainers, all of that. If I were right now a Gen Z, I would look at my story. I would be really good about, like, I hate to say branding and story because that's so gross and cliche, but like looking at my like skills and trying to build a story around that. And then also like, you know, upskilling and like getting internships and stuff like that. But trying to find positions that would value, you know, my strengths, probably that cannot be replaced easily with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Play to your human strengths.
Yeah.
Your EQ more than your IQ. I love that. Okay, so relationships, master AI, and then master the human skills as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now let's talk about folks in the tech sector, our second big topic today. Obviously, ever since the early days of COVID, when Elon comes in, buys Twitter, lays off 80% of their employees, and the company stays afloat by some miracle, and then Mark Zuckerberg copies him in Facebook, and then they do the same thing at Google and the same thing at Microsoft. There's been these rolling waves of layoffs throughout the tech sector. What are you reading right now, Rose? What's happening today?
Yeah, so obviously the trend is clear. So we're seeing Amazon, Salesforce, Microsoft, Duolingo. They're all basically saying that they are going to use AI to shrink headcount. That is obvious. They're not even hiding about it. They're just saying this is what's happening. Like, the Amazon CEO basically outright said AI is coming for your jobs. Basically, even Salesforce said that they're not hiring any more software engineers this year because they can use AI. I think Shopify told managers to check if AI could do a job before hiring a human. But it's also not just tech, from what I can tell. It's also companies like Procter & Gamble, Estee Lauder. Like, they're also cutting thousands of jobs right now. So, yeah, I think the AI transition isn't coming. It's already basically here. And people are really open about using it to streamline teams and boost productivity. In some cases, I can see the argument, right? Like, for nonprofits that have limited money and like need that, and it's, you know, like, I understand that, but yeah.
Well, that raises an interesting question, Rose, which is usually these layoffs are at times of peak despair.
Yeah.
You know, a company is going through the worst moments in their corporate history. Mm-hmm. And yet right now, every company you've mentioned is reporting record profits.
I know.
So it's so weird to pair those record profits with mass layoffs. What do you think about that, Rose? Do companies have an obligation to like have higher employment for a better society, or should they just keep cutting to the bone and keep getting rewarded on Wall Street?
Oh, that is the ethical question at business school, which is like, do they, you know, there's that one argument of like they have an obligation to the shareholders to maximize profit.
Right, the Milton Friedman University of Chicago approach.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like right now, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people are thinking the executives are cashing in while workers are being laid off. Like, that is just like one sentiment. And then, so obviously, like, I will probably argue I always will argue for the fact that, like, I don't think, like, the big issue right now is, like, what do these people do right now? And it's too hard to tell, right? Like we're all saying, like, AI is going to create more jobs, but I'm thinking, is it? Well, we don't know. How long is that going to take? Is it enough to replace all the people that are laid off? Right now, I'm seeing that entry-level workers and like middle managers are most at risk, right? So these groups already tend to face like housing, debt, like they're new to like the job market, right? So being unemployed for long periods of time, is it going to help them in the future? And I think that there's just, so I think that is a social problem that we have. And I don't know if I'm confident that we will be able to like make enough jobs to replace all of the jobs that are being replaced by AI right now, or in like the near future. I don't know enough to say that I believe in that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask this, because I think, you know, economists will always tell you about that famous phrase, creative destruction. In other words, as one door closes, as one way of life ends, a new one begins. And of course, the classic example is the internet. The internet killed off things like the yellow pages and classified ads and all this stuff that was very profitable back in the day. But it also created space for web designers and social media managers and all these jobs no one could have predicted in 1990. But as far as creative destruction goes, where's the creative part right now? Where are the new jobs that AI is supposed to usher in? Because maybe with the exception of prompt engineer, and I don't know how many prompt engineers are out there, I'm not seeing those jobs.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that people are saying like, oh, it will create new positions like prompt engineers. Are they going to hire that many prompt engineers to replace all these people? So I think my issue is like the companies that are doing all these massive layoffs aren't necessarily explaining how somebody could, like, how they plan. They're literally just saying, we're replacing these people. They are unnecessary, right? But there isn't, I guess I'm not seeing that like sliver of hope for everybody else. And I just don't think that people are going to see that. If they're unemployed and they're unemployed for many years and really struggling to find jobs, I don't think that they're going to see that sliver of like, you know, creativity that you're talking about. I also had another thought, but I can't remember what it was.
Let me throw out another idea. So maybe there's not going to be so much creation of new jobs, at least not in the short term, but maybe there'll be some retrenchment, bringing back the old people who were laid off.
So that's
I'll give you a couple examples.
Yep.
Yeah, from the articles you had called out, you know, Klarna, Duolingo, McDonald's, IBM, they had all laid off a huge chunk of people and said, hey, we're going to replace them with AI. It's totally fine.
Yep.
And then the experience wasn't great. Take Klarna, for example. You know, they were doing basically all their customer service through AI. Turns out their customers hated talking to the AI even more than a typical customer service rep. So they had to hire them back. So what do you think? Is that sort of the future, kind of this pendulum swing back and forth?
Okay, so here's the thing is, though, that would happen earlier, right? So this is when everybody was like, oh my God, AI can do everything. Like, I think there was way too much excitement. I think everyone didn't want to fall behind. So they embraced all of that. But like you said, like McDonald's, IBM, Duolingo, they all backtracked, right? They all felt remorse. They're like, oop, it isn't as good as we thought it was going to be. And I think I've had that same experience too for one of the companies I've been working with, where I've been helping them replace basically their entire like customer service wing with AI, which is basically me and like me setting up their prompt. And there's been hiccups.
Wait, so you're training your replacement, Rose?
I'm
AI avatar replacement?
I have trained a system to replace an entire team of customer service people. But again, it is like a startup, like, you know, so that, like there are situations in which I think it could be, AI is really wonderful and can help people, like can help startups and nonprofits that are resource limited. So I do think, yes, I think that maybe there will be some level of like backtracking, but I guess it's just too early to tell. Some of the stuff I can see why they're not backtracking on, right? So like for like software engineers, I've seen some of what the tools can do. I think software engineers are still really important and we still need to have them. But there are some tasks that I've been told from other software engineers that the AI just does better or does for a lot cheaper or whatever. So I think there will be jobs that will be permanently, you know, either lost or decreased by a large amount. But I don't think
it's like the classified ad editors from 1985.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be one of those things where like everyone's like, okay, you know what? Sorry, guys, false alarm. We want everyone back. I don't think it's going to be to that level.
The genie's out of the bottle.
No.
Well, let's now move from the depths of despair to the heights of ecstasy. Because even if AI taketh away, AI still giveth to a select few. Sorry to get all biblical there, Rose, but I think you know what I'm talking about, which is Mark Zuckerberg and his famous list. So we've all been hearing about how basically fed up with the performance of his existing AI team and Llama, he's gone on this hiring spree over the last couple of weeks, going after top AI researchers at OpenAI and across the world, offering them compensation reportedly at $100 million and above.
I think it's up to 100.
Up to $100 million. Now, whether that's true or not remains to be found, but the reality is that if you are a top AI researcher today, you are not facing unemployment or breadlines. You are facing a major payday. So what's your take here, Rose? Is Zuck just completely lost it? Is this his new Oculus, his new metaverse? Or is this actually a smart move where he's paying a relatively small price today to own the world tomorrow?
Yeah, I won't answer the big question of whether it's a big move, because I remember when he bought WhatsApp for, you know, a crazy amount of money. It was like billions of dollars. People were like, this man is crazy because WhatsApp is not generating any revenue. And now he's introducing ads. So, you know, Zuck has his mining. But in my mind, when I read this, I thought, okay, so obviously he's trying to keep up with OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic, right? Because he doesn't want to stay, he wants to stay relevant. He wants Meta to stay relevant. I thought in my head, this isn't just like a regular hiring spree, right? It's definitely a power grab for like intellectual capital. Because in the article, the folks have tribal knowledge. I don't know if you caught that, but it was like things that you can't really Google or replicate by just like reading a paper. So I thought, okay, he's not just buying code or like talent. He's literally buying wisdom that has been accumulated inside the walls of like OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind over
that
years.
Sounds a little bit like trade secrets, Rose. I wonder if there's some potential IP litigation to come here.
But like, I mean, he's poaching, right? Like, I mean, that is a crazy amount of money, right? Because there are a bunch of people that are AI experts, but he's specifically wanting people who are, in these walls. So that's my thing. And I just thought, despite all this like open source talk, right, this kind of suggests to me that the real like breakthroughs, I can't think of another word, are behind kind of closed doors with like these elite researchers kind of jumping between the same handful of companies, right? So, I mean, obviously this mirrors like a broader trend of like tech consolidation. So the biggest players with the deepest pockets are going to control a lot of the transformative tech that we're seeing. But another thing is I think that the hefty price, he's probably to some extent buying trust and credibility because like, not only are they lacking talent, but like that article mentioned how some of the researchers scrub like Llama 4 from their LinkedIns because they don't want to be associated with that. They were so embarrassed, right? And like, I think that if you're gonna offer these amazing researchers and try to poach them from OpenAI, you better be offering a risk premium essentially, which is why I think there's such a higher, there's such a big price tag on these people.
Yeah. Well, this is a really interesting business school question because it raises the question, can great teams be bought? Obviously there are certain sectors, like take finance, for instance, where Goldman Sachs might go to JP Morgan and poach their entire buy-side trader team or whatever because they come as a unit and they're like very tribal, as you said. But it does seem like the way that humans work together is so mysterious, so fraught with like whatever it is, a chemistry that drives us to be successful or sometimes not. Can you just buy all the smartest people in the world, throw them in a room, and then hope for the magic to happen?
I would like to think that you can. I really would, right? But not only is he offering money, he's offering the opportunity to be part of this elite circle. And people love being part of this elite bubble. It's a bubble. They want to be part of this like round table because I think the promise, again, he is personally going out and talking to them and like having them go to his house. Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall and see what he's promising them. But if I were the salesperson for this and I was trying to convince someone to come join, I'd be like, you are joining the list of people who are the best minds in the world. Can you imagine how amazing this will be? So I think there's that promise too. So I think there's more than just like money that he's selling. It's also like the promise of, revolutionizing the world. I think it's the networking. I think it's all of it. So in a way, yes, I think you can be bought. I think there are some people that, have very strong ethics and morality and like they'll scoff at this and they're not going to do it. But it's a lot of money. I mean,
that's right. Money speaks. Yeah. Although I will have to give a little shout out to our boy Sam Altman over at OpenAI.
Yeah.
He did some great sort of reverse psychology work. He came out very early on his own brother's podcast and said, yeah, they're trying to poach our folks for, cool 100 million, but they're not getting any of our best people.
Yeah.
And so automatically that list that was so juicy and secretive suddenly became a poison list because if you were on that, you weren't one of Sam's best people. So we'll see whose power move actually wins out here.
That is a really smart one that I didn't even consider him doing, that psychological play. Also, like OpenAI wants to go public, right? Wants to go private or for-profit. For-profit.
Right,
they want to go for-profit. So if they were to go for-profit, they'd be worth a crazy amount. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Well, before we close up today, when it comes to actually fulfilling the promise of whatever it is that these businesses hope to ultimately achieve, we've got to tip our friend or tip our hat to Mr. Bezos over there, founder of Amazon, who just took all those billions that he made running the world's biggest store and took his sweetheart over to Venice to wed in front of, a small gathering of thousands of the biggest A-list celebrities in the world. So fill us in, Rose. What was going on at this wedding? What's your take on it?
So first of all, I didn't know it was happening until the world exploded about it. So I thought it was I think it was a couple of days before. I thought, I didn't even know he was getting married, just because I don't follow that kind of stuff. But it was huge. He threw a 3-day, about $50 million wedding. I mean, it's
50 million?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, just 50 million, no big deal. It was in Venice.
Of a researcher at OpenAI.
Right. It was in Venice. There were pictures of a foam party on his yacht. There was locals protesting. Venetians were kind of already fed up with obviously like tourism and like the rich taking over. So this was basically just pouring champagne on the fire. They felt like from what I read, there was a sentiment of like, we feel exploited. Like, this is our city and now rich are coming in and they can just buy us essentially. And so people were not only mad about the cost, but even like people in the US were kind of pissed off because like we have a climate crisis, we have a housing crisis, we have like all of this stuff happening, and we have this rich guy renting a city to flex how rich he is, right? So for a lot of people, it was just very tone deaf.
I love that phrase, rent a city. That's exactly
rent
what
a city. And like people thought it was, I'm going to do a couple quotes here, but like a sign of garish commodification of a fragile city, and like a message that rich people can do whatever they want. And yeah. So, and then one thing I will say was that he did give 3 million euros to, I think, some organizations there. But let's be real, 3 million is
scraping some crumbs off the royal table.
I was like 3 million is pennies to this man.
Yeah.
So so basically people are pissed. I think everyone across the board was just like ridiculously frustrated, really ridiculously annoyed, maybe some jealousy thrown in.
Right. Okay, so this brings me back to one of my favorite moments when I worked at LinkedIn. When I was there, they had this great speaker series where people who had written books about the tech space would come in. And there was this guy, Brad Stone, who was a big-time tech reporter, and he had written this book called The Everything Store, basically the first big biography of Jeff Bezos and Amazon's rise to fame. And it was fascinating because he was talking about all these accomplishments, first to have a big e-commerce operation, first to do cloud hosting with AWS, all these different things. But he never really got into like the heart and soul of this man. And I actually stood to ask him a question. And as an introvert, I was really nervous at the time. And I said, there's that famous movie Citizen Kane. And at the heart of Citizen Kane, this Orson Welles classic, there's this question of Rosebud. What is the thing that drives this famous man? What is ultimately making him do the things that he does? And I asked Brad, what is the Rosebud for Jeff Bezos? And he said, even after following him for a decade, he had no idea what was in his heart. And I find that this whole Venice thing was so off-putting because in my mind, I kind of always assumed that Jeff Bezos was a little bit of a different kind of tech tycoon. Instead of focusing on, flashy tech and all that, he was trying to make a better customer experience, or at least that's what he claimed. Amazon always ran way more frugally than other tech companies. No free lunches, not nearly as many perks or amenities. And like maybe he actually did care about the end user. But now to do this in the midst of all these things, with the world almost like literally burning around him, just feels like the ultimate tone-deaf move. Not exactly who I thought he was, but I think it just goes to show I'm still looking for his Rosebud.
Interesting. See, I know nothing about Jeff Bezos. I know he's a billionaire. And I remember when everyone was like exploded about this, I thought in my head, are we surprised? Like everyone was like, oh, he's so tone-deaf and he's detached from reality. And I thought, he's a billionaire. Like, are we surprised that rich people are a little detached from reality and hardship? Like, no. And also, I will say, like, I read an article today that said that local officials said that the wedding actually helped the economy there. Like, it helped florists and, dock workers and caterers. So it actually did bring in, cash for rural people. So I don't know if some of the backlash was just because this billionaire who's also politically charged right now and controversial is just having a lavish wedding. Like, I can see the side of people saying, he loves his boo and he has the money and he wants to be romantic and he wants to celebrate it with his with his pals, right? And this isn't the first time we've seen a celebrity lavish wedding. That's another thing that I will say is like, we've seen a lot of celebrities do crazy lavish weddings like this too. But this was one that like really pissed people off. I think the timing was really poor, obviously. I think doing it in Venice wasn't great unless they have some backstory that they want to share. But like, I agree with you. Like, this is the first time I've seen like, I guess Bezos be in the spotlight of like, you're a terrible person, you're really tone deaf.
Yeah, well, maybe this is the perfect way to end this week's episode, because across every story we've covered, AI and education, all the tech layoffs, Zuckerberg, Bezos, there's a question about the black box. Not AI, but the black box of the human minds that are driving our world crazy. Like, what's in the mind of a Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg? What is ultimately causing our world to spin the way it is? So something for us to investigate in future conversations, Rose. But for now, I want to encourage everyone listening, check out the links to all the stories that Rose referenced today. We're going to have them in the show notes for you. And then let us know what you think. Come to the comments and weigh in on some of these hot topics. And before we go, Rose, any final words of wisdom to share with our awesome listeners?
I wish I'd thought about this beforehand, but I would say to the Gen Zers out there who are struggling to find jobs, like, it sucks. I acknowledge that I'm not going to downplay that it's garbage, but life has a weird way of working out. I mean, like, people will always tell you who are much older, who survived recessions and, layoffs and all of that, like, things will eventually work out. It's just hard to see it right now because you can't predict the future, and everyone's in the same boat right now where they don't know what's going to happen. So keep going. And yeah, that's all I can say is like, I acknowledge and I feel you.
No, I love it. And I think that goes back to what I was going to say, which is the two most important letters of the next 5 years or 50 years are not going to be IQ. They're going to be EQ. So have more feels, have more empathy, and use those superpowers to really stand out in this crazy world. And with that said, for Synergies, Sminergies, this is your co-host, Jeremy.
And this is your co-host, Rose. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Cheers, everyone.